asking to perform live and without notes, but I think the feedback will be on content.
People who aren't here asked if we could record it. I totally forgot. Sorry, I'm starting a little late. So Irina, because that occurred to me while you were speaking, I didn't hear a word you said. So could you just repeat what you said?
Sure, no problem. The primary feedback that presenters will get after the rehearsals will be on content, much more so, and less on their actual performance.
Sure. Okay, great. So it's conceivable that I'm going to have prepared slides, ideas, whatever. How many people are going to be giving me feedback? Like, I was just talking with someone this morning who's presenting at a different event. 6, is that it, Leslie? 6 people are going to give feedback? Right. So I was talking to somebody today, a DaVita person, who said she got feedback from 10 people during her rehearsal. And it's like, what do you do with that?
Marty probably will get feedback from 10 people, right, Marty?
So there again, it's like, I don't, is there, so some of you have done this before. What's the inside track here? Is there one voice that's louder than another? Like, how do I treat the feedback? Are all 6 voices equal?
I mean, I guess I can reflect on that a little bit, Tom. So you'll get feedback from your immediate supervisors, and then you'll get feedback from leadership, which is maybe the COO, maybe the CEO, maybe your boss's boss. So I think that, you know, the feedback from the top is always something that you take seriously, and you work with your immediate supervisor to reshape your message if it needs to be reshaped. Everybody's intent is to ensure that we're capturing, you know, the right verbiage. We're stating what we want, the idea we want to get across in a way that everybody feels good about, that's going to land correctly. So we all understand that the intent is there to do this the very best that we can.
That's nice. I'm glad. No, I'm serious. Like, I'm glad that the intention is to support you, and it can still be confusing, right? To hear, right, like, well, he wants it this way, she wants it this way. What do I do? Right. So I want to suggest to you that that's inevitable, and you can deal with that. So part of what I hear you saying, Marty, is you're going to talk about it you're going to talk about the feedback, and you'll figure it out.
Right.
Okay, great.
It's not always easy, and it may diverge from it may diverge from how you wanted to go. But in reality, as long as you keep the spirit in mind of, no, this is an important event, and people want to help you get it right, or at least make suggestions such that what you're saying is going to land correctly. So.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to jump, because I think this is a really interesting question. I'm going to jump to Jonathan's question about style, and I'd like to do a little game if we can. And I'd love for everybody to play, including you, Leslie. Like, I know, Leslie, you've been really good about sign language and stuff, but you're going to have to actually speak. So, I'm going to propose a question to you all, and I'd love for you to write the answer before anybody talks, right? So we're going to, like, I don't know, have 30 seconds of silence or whatever while everybody answers this question. Or well, I guess we could, here's a way that we could do this. We could put it in the chat, but don't hit send. In other words, everybody type, but don't hit send until I say send, and then we'll all do it and it'll all pop up. So here's the question that you're going to answer in the chat. If you could describe the best possible PLM presenter with 3 adjectives, how would you describe that presenter? 3 adjectives. So you're going to put in 3 words in the chat. don't hit send. And when you're done, just give me a thumbs up so I know. Take as much time as you like. Got it. Thank you. Thank you. So Bernie, are you there? I can't tell. Are you ready?
I wrote it, but it didn't. Did I send it by accident?
No, not yet.
Oh,
Well, not according to
okay.
me.
Sorry.
Great. No, it's all fine.
Okay, mine's done. You don't want us to send it yet.
Well, now, yes.
Oh,
Let's
no.
all
Okay.
do it.
Okay.
Let's do it. So here we go. Let's see what we got. Scientific, personable understanding. Great. So there's a theme here around engaging, right? Personable, I think, is engaging. Engaging is engaging. Connected to the audience. Great. So there's also something, am I right, Leslie, when you talk about understanding, that would also be like what Marty said, something that resonates? Is that the same kind of idea there? Yeah?
Yeah, kind of empathetic to the audience's point of view.
Oh, understanding in that way. I see. I got it.
Yeah.
Thanks. And Bernie is remembered as in memorable?
I think it kind of in the same tone of that, you know, because you are empathetic and because you struck something that someone could take home with them and say, yes, I can do that with my patient. More that type of remembered. Not remembering me so much as remembering what I brought to the table.
Right, that the content is memorable.
The content was right.
Excellent. This all, to me, looks pretty achievable. I mean, are there any words here that you look and go like, what? Or maybe there are some here that you would like to find? And Jonathan, I would ask you, is this helpful?
This is helpful, right? But I also, the other piece of it is just asking, I guess, for those that have been through it before and been at the village longer in these big groups, when somebody new to the village comes, right? Just what, how much context should I provide for me being a new face in front of folks in a leadership role?
Great. So I don't know who can speak to that. Irina, maybe you. Marty, maybe you. I don't know who can speak to that, but that's a great question. And can I just say it back to you in a way, just so that I'm sure I understand what you're asking, Jonathan?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That partly you're asking about, like, how do you literally introduce yourself to the community? Is that
yeah, because it's a group of physicians, right? And so you see these words about credibility, right? That's clearly important to this group, and it wasn't just me but credible, right? There's a lot of words here that, and I'm new to the organization, so I just want to make sure that I'm hitting on the right notes. Having worked, again, my background is not healthcare, so that's part of it. I come into this coming from telecom, technology and financial services. And there's a group of physicians. I should know how to speak to a physician because I'm married to one, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I don't know. She may, if she was here, thank God she's not around to hear that, she could open the door and provide a little bit of a comment.
But what a great, I mean, that is a really wonderful question, which is, I'm not a doctor, but I'm speaking to doctors. So cool. I mean, what thoughts do you have for Jonathan?
Well, I would just say I have the same question too. So this is not, I think, I'm a physician. I'm used to giving talks for physician groups, but PLM is not the typical physician meeting, I think. You know, we have a very ritualistic introduction, which is very academic and very, you know, when someone introduces you, thank you very much for Bob, appreciate the warm intro. Well, this is not that. You know, I think we're getting up and giving our own introduction. So Jonathan and I, since I'm new, I started at the end of October. So I will have the, you know, the duty of introducing myself too. And if you actually had to read what you typically hand another physician to, you know, introduce you, you would never read that yourself because you would look like a pompous, you know what. So, you know, how to, you know, so I have the same one as to, I'm very curious, you know, for other folks as to how new folks coming into ACMO or other roles also, you know, take the stage and introduce themselves, or does the prior presenter give them a little lead in? So I'm curious too.
Great.
Can I'm sorry, I'm new as well. Can you just,
Woo.
I know, so Jonathan, can you tell me, I don't know what your position is, and neither do I know what Brendan is doing.
Well, maybe we should do a quick round of introductions. I mean, this is great. I thought I was the new kid. Like,
No,
oh my God, this is great.
Yeah,
I've been here 2 weeks, so I don't know what
But then seriously, can we do a quick round? I mean,
Sure.
yeah, who are you? What role are you in? Yeah, whatever. Go ahead. And Brittany, will you start us off? Since, I mean, thank you for, that was a real great wake-up call for me. So,
that was thank you. So
yeah,
I'm one of the new VPs of home, and my specialty is going to be home hemodialysis. So I'm working with Marty and Miran and Mark Shapiro.
excellent. And are you an MD?
Yes, I am.
Thanks. Cool. I think everybody's going to go here. So
I'll hop in, right? Jonathan Leapson, as I mentioned before, I live in the center of Boston. Married to a doctor. My background is customer experience, and I came to the Village as vice president of patient experience to build out the patient experience kind of vision and function within the Village. And so, live in Boston, 2 kids, both out of school. One's in school, one I'm visiting this week, out of school, and one I'm visiting. So, and it's just me and the dog right now. My wife travels 1 week a month to provide care in underserved areas of the Southeast. She's an OBGYN, so she's somewhere between Mobile and Montgomery right now, driving between clinics. So.
hey, Jonathan, can I ask a question about something that you said?
Yeah.
So if I heard you right, you come from a user experience, a customer experience that,
user experience is part of it, right? But when you think about customer experience, I think very broadly, right? So part of it is the user experience. It could be a screen, right? Or a piece of technology that you're using that stands between you and the organization. It's delivering the experience, but it also could be you picking up the phone and speaking to somebody, walking into a clinic and interfacing with somebody. It could be us sending you an email, a text, engaging in some sort of education program, either virtually or face-to-face. So it kind of spans that.
Thanks. And by the way, my question, I don't know if my question indicates a kind of assumption that many people have, but I heard customer experience and I thought user experience.
Yeah. Okay, that's good to know.
I don't know. Maybe again. So terrific. Thanks. Who's next? Go get it.
I'll go. It's fine. Yeah. So Brendan Bowman. I'm a nephrologist here. Just started kind of end of October. Beginning in November. I come from academic world out here in Virginia, and so I've been core dialysis, kind of in-center hemodialysis medical director. Helped run the dialysis program here for a while here in Virginia, and so I'm joining the group as a vice president, and my focus is clinical quality and safety. So I'm working in the clinical enterprise group here. So anyway, Bernie, it's nice to meet you. I don't think I knew about you.
I'm in Stowe, Massachusetts, so I'm close to Jonathan. Yeah.
That's great.
I've heard Jonathan because I think I missed the first like annual MYO or whatever updates, and so I've seen Jonathan talk a number of times already. So I just assume everyone's not new, and I'm the new guy, and everyone else has been here forever. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you said something.
Yeah, I am too. That's great. Thanks. Can I throw the ball to Marty?
Yeah, so thanks, Tom. So I'm Marty Schreiber. I'm a nephrologist, and I have been the chief medical officer for home dialysis and pediatrics for 8 years, and I'm stepping back, and I'm going to share some of the high points over the past 8 years and reflect on what I've learned from leadership over 40 years. And then I'm going to hand it off to the new CMO. And the new CMO will then share a little bit about himself and his vision of where he's going to be taking home to the next level. So it's almost like we'll have this transition where I'm excited about his appointment. I'm thankful for what I've accomplished and the opportunity to have served. And, you know, I'm really proud and honored that I've had the opportunity, and then hand it off to him to take it to the next level. So.
Fantastic. That's great. Wow. So, and Irina and Leslie, I don't want to assume that people know who you are. So will you introduce yourselves too? Who are you pointing at,
Yeah,
Brendan?
hi.
Oh, we know them.
Hi,
They're
Tom.
trouble.
Oh, we do? See, I don't know anything here, so I don't know who knows who.
I spent my entire first 4 months with Leslie, like my sidekick. I'm your sidekick.
Nice.
I'm a presentation specialist by trade. I come from doing slides for pharmaceutical companies that are presenting for drug approvals. But I've been with the Village for 10 years. This is my 10th PLM, supporting these guys just in the clarity of their messaging and their consistency in their slides as well.
Fantastic. Wow, what a gift. That's so great. Wow, cool.
And my name is Irina, and Brittany, we have not met in person on video yet. And I'm a nurse in clinical enterprise, leading different clinical initiatives. And in addition to that, I am partnering with Jeff and all of you, ACMO team, on PLM, from content, agenda, deliverables. So I've been working with Leslie probably as long as Leslie have on PLMs. So this is great to be here. And Tom, if I can share something in terms of introducing yourself, I remember, Marty, one rehearsal you did back when we did live rehearsals in Denver, and you introduced yourself and then went on with your presentation, and Javier gave you some feedback on introduction, and he said, Marty, you should introduce yourself as I am a leader for home. I lead home. And right there with that introduction comes credibility and trust and competency. So it just really, I remember that, and I think it was a very effective way. And also to Brendan and Jonathan and Bernie, I wouldn't let the fact that you are new to the Village take away from your expertise, your knowledge, and what you have to bring. And that's why you are presenting, because you have the credibility, you have the expertise and subject matter knowledge in your area. So I wouldn't even mention that you are new to the Village when you introduce yourself. I don't think that matters, and potentially could only take away from what you have to bring. I don't know, Tom, if you would agree or disagree with that.
Well, I think it's really helpful. One of the questions that occurred to me was whether there was actually a strategy in the fact that there are new people, right? I mean, I didn't know how that came to be, and whether there's intention in that, where that might be an important message. But it sounds like that's not part of the kind of strategic message here. Is like, we have new members on our team and we're whatever, bringing new energy or something. That's not the point here. Am I right?
I would have to say that I think it's a real differentiator, Tom, if we think about other providers in this industry or this space and how we compare to them, because I see us as expanding our physician core, which I think says an awful lot for the company. And really at the center of the company is this super strong, highly talented clinical group that is guiding the care of patients for all those out there that are providing the actual care.
So Marty, connect for me the two ideas. Arena's idea, which is being new is not really relevant. That's not the message we're sending. And my question of like, is there perhaps a message that has resonance to say, oh, look, we have all this new talent that's coming in. Connect those two, because I'm not sure which way you're actually advocating.
Yes. So we realize over time what we need to add. You know, how should we be expanding the support we provide all of you? And we continue to upgrade, add additional talent to really help you provide better care. I don't know if that's clear, but you know, that's how I would see it. And that's
Marty,
a differentiator.
Do you think that's something that's feedback maybe for Jeff to mention in his, you know, it to kind of set us up a little bit, where he says, you know, hey, you know, we're excited to bring these, you know, new members of our team down there. So that maybe that, you know, like me and Bernie don't have to, you know, advertise to the world that we're the new people, but, you know, Jeff lays it out exactly as you did, where he says, you know, hey, we looked where we needed more expertise and we brought that in, and we're excited to have those people to share their expertise with you today, or something like that, as opposed to us coming out and saying, you know, we're the answer to the gap that, no, I'm just kidding. Okay, that's probably not how we would say it, but, you know, something like that. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, and I think he plans on doing that. I think he plans to mention that we are continuing to invest and expand in physician leadership in new ACMA members.
But I think, Jonathan, like, you're a very non-traditional hire in some ways, I think. And so to me, that's like something that they should be calling out and saying, we're excited to have somebody with this skill set that we've never had.
My guess is if I didn't call it out, that I've come in with, you know, 10 years of experience, more of just focusing on customer experience and now patient experience. If I didn't mention that I'm coming in with that outside perspective, I know I would get some feedback from Mike, right? Because part of it is having me come in and thinking about it as companies outside of healthcare have thought about it, right? Which is very different from the way providers have addressed experience, right? It's comparatively immature in healthcare compared to other industries, right? So I will have to mention it, but I think, Arena, to your point, don't belabor it. Like, it's okay to say, I came to the village, it's done, right? I came to the village last year, that's all I have to say about it, with 10 years experience and blah, blah, blah. Just establish the credibility, acknowledge it, establish the credibility, because I think later on, I know my plan is to have Francesca start asking me about, you know, how are others doing it? You weren't coming. So I think it's just going to come naturally. But I like that comment, Arena, that you mentioned about, you know, in the past, Marty being the king of home. Something like that. He's supposed to say something like that, right? Right. But that establishing that credibility are always important. So thank you.
I think
I mean, I'm a princess.
or queen. I don't know.
Queen. I was going to say that.
No, I don't want to know.
I was going to say that. Queen.
Miran has a king cake from Louisiana, as you know, so he'll have a New Orleans king cake when he ascends the throne.
So I think there's just in terms of there's something that's really interesting here that's kind of evolving on its own, which is, Marty, it sounds like a lot of what you're going to talk about with people is retrospective, reflecting on, you know, all this history that you have as you kind of pass the torch forward. It sounds like for Bernie and for Brendan and Jonathan, what you have is vision of the future. And so I think that's great that you should be able to talk confidently about that. And of course, part of what we're doing here today is to kind of give you ideas about how to go into your rehearsal, and then you'll get feedback, and people will say that whatever, they'll whatever. So I want to build one more piece on this little thing that we're talking about, because this has all been about introductions and framing yourself. Bernie, let me just ask you, you had a question about hello and how to actually literally like say, hi, here's who I am. Has this been helpful, and do you still have questions about it, or did this kind of give you a vision of how you might try it?
Yeah, it does help me, but literally, how do you say hi? Like how, when you start something to an audience like this,
Great.
That's what I just want, those first words. Like, what are those first words that come to your mind to break the ice, to put yourself there?
So I'm going to give you two things to play with, one of which is the words and one of which is the look. So let me start with the look. Seriously, you are going to be on the day that it really gets taped, but also on your rehearsal, you're going to be looking into the lens. And this goes, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the video that I posted for everybody, but that whole idea of putting someone's face in the lens, talk to someone. It's not a camera, it's not the lens, it's a person. So, whoever, like this is Samantha. So that's the look, is to make a connection with a real person. There's a little bit of pretend here, there's a little bit of acting here, but that's one thing. And then the second is, I think you can say any kind of greeting that feels genuine to you. If you literally walked up to a podium, you got introduced, you walked up to a podium, let's skip, oh, and hey, thanks for the introduction, right? Let's skip that. When you turn to the audience, how would you actually start? It's no different. So maybe your style is to say, hi, everybody. That's my style, by the way. Hi, everybody. That's how I start, but you can start any way you want. Some people start with a question. Let me ask you this. When you think about blah, 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 right? Some people like to just jump in like that. Bernie, it's however it's going to make sense to you. There's
Okay.
no
I'm
right
a hi
way.
everybody type of person, but I didn't know if that was okay. So that's fine. Okay.
And listen, here's what I think, Irina, please, and Leslie, please, if this is bad advice, call me on it. But I think the purpose of a rehearsal is to show people your idea, not with kind of tentativeness or hesitancy, like, is this okay? But to go full out and go, this is what I'm planning to do. And if people don't like it, you'll get feedback. So I don't know, is that good advice?
That's helpful. Yes.
Great. So go for it. If hi everybody is your style, do hi everybody with whoever that person is in the lens. Go for it. People will tell you. Cool. So you good on hello?
Yep. That's all I need.
All right. So I made a bunch of notes when we were kind of listing what the questions were. I don't remember who said what, so pardon me for that. But one of the questions was about connecting virtually. And then when the list of words in the chat came up, there's a lot about that, I think, right? About being personable and connecting. Connecting is actually one of the words, engaging and all that. So can you all talk to me a little bit about what's your concern, or what's on your mind about that? What would you like to really get answered here?
I'll start. You can. I'll just give you some of the challenges that I found in the transition. Is you can't read the room, right?
That's right.
You just can't read the room, right? And for me, where most of my large group presentations have been in front of groups of people, you can read the room, and that has worked for me. So the transition to virtual just cuts that off completely, and that to me is a challenge. Just
so Jonathan, let me just ask you. By the way, I'm totally with you, right? I mean, this whole virtual experience is so different from standing up in front of a group of 100 or 1,000. I'm completely with you. But let's pretend when you get introduced and you walk up and you're in a room, like a hotel ballroom, bunch of people sitting in chairs. What do you actually know about all those folks? I mean, most people are not, I think most people are not sitting, you know, with their arms folded looking at you like, I hope you suck, right? I mean, that's not what they're thinking, we hope. But like when you say read the room, when you start, what do you know? You don't know much, do you? Or do you?
Well, I mean, I spend as much time as I can understanding the perspective of those people that I'm presenting to. So in my past life, if I'm presenting to a bunch of folks who run branches all around the country in banking, I kind of know their lives. I know their perspective. I know what's on their mind. I know what their lives are like, right, on the day to day. And so it definitely influences how I'm going to present. I think that's really important. Or if it was in other times, I've you know, I think it's really important to just gain that understanding, right?
And is that available to you here around the PLM?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping I get that kind of feedback. And as I talked to the outline, I got some feedback that I was able to adjust. I'm glad that I have Francesca as my kind of like partner in crime here. I'm leveraging her, who's been through many of these PLMs, to help me stay relevant where if I'm missing the mark, right? And to make sure it's going to resonate, right? These are, you know, and reminding me that these are physicians who are coming out of, and I have been going to clinics. I go to clinic you know, every once a week. I'm spending half a day in a clinic just to get smart, right? So I'm doing my best, but generally, especially if you're first time in front of a group of physicians like this, that's, you know, I can't read the room. I just thrive on that, right?
Great. Okay, so that's really helpful. What else around this idea of being engaging, connecting with the audience? What else is on people's mind before I start yakking?
I want to speak to this because I've seen some pre-recorded presentations in the past 2 years that have felt very wooden to me, just really not a lot of life. And it's really hard to pay attention and be engaged in what this person is saying when you feel this sort of flatness or one dimension. I think sometimes you can get that when people read their presentations as well. And for me, a lot, it comes down to how they're breathing when they're delivering the presentation. But I feel like some guidance there would really go a long way in terms of getting people to focus on what's being said versus tuning it out.
Excellent. Wow. I love that you're like thinking about breathing. That's pretty sophisticated, Leslie. I love that. That's great. Cool. What else around connecting? What other questions do you have? Concerns do you have?
You know, one of the observations, Tom, is typically when we have these face-to-face meetings, the room acts as a stimulant or gets people really engaged. And so then when you do come on stage, you know, they're excited, you know, and there's a different, you know, there's energy in the air, let's say, where maybe touching on a little bit, you know, what Leslie says, you're having to bring that stimulus, you're having to bring that energy to a virtual presentation. And what are some tips as to, you know, how to do that?
Yeah, boy. Yes, indeed. Listen, I just want to say, you know, I have a whole community of colleagues who do what I do. We do a lot of big group facilitation, team facilitation, blah, 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 all that stuff. And we all talk about how hard it is to do this virtually and how tiring it is. Much more tiring than being in a room of 100 people. Being in a room of 100 people, there's an energy exchange that happens. Being virtually with 100 people, there's no exchange. So I have to put it all out. Exactly what you just said, Marty. It's like I have to do all the work with no idea where it's landing and nothing coming back. I get no data back. So listen, I understand that this is a challenge. I'm with you. I think it is a challenge. Before I go further, other thoughts? And by the way, I know that Ty has joined us, but Ty, I don't know who you are. I don't know if you'd like to participate. You're certainly welcome to join us, to turn on your camera and open your mic. That's welcome. But like, I don't even know who I'm talking to. So
I'm sorry, I was just joining in listen mode. So I'm assistant to Irina, so I set up the call. So I was just wanting to just listen.
Well,
I'm not presenting, but you know, I'm enjoying.
not yet. You're not.
Yeah, not yet.
Never know.
But I am enjoying the information. So
Great.
But I'm also working, so I'm multitasking. So I didn't want you to be distracted by me.
Ty, it's great to have you. You're welcome. Thank you for letting me know. I just didn't know who you are because I'm the new kid. Before I go further on connecting, because I got a couple more ideas I want to share. Other questions or concerns?
That was mine. Same as Leslie. You know, I think I viewed a few of the samples down before, and again, a lot of us are not, you know, natural. I think I imagine in your line, there's a bit of acting that helps to make this, you know, a more engaging presentation from our end, and I think that's fine. But we've seen so many, Marty, I don't know if you feel the same way, or Bernie, so many physician talks that are recorded for physician conferences that go 30 to 40 minutes, and it could be really, really compelling information, but God, you just can't make it to the end. And you know, I don't want to be that person. I know I've had to record a couple too as well. On the opposite side, I think, you know, we don't want to go so far in the service of trying to appear engaging that we look, you know, like a vaudeville show up there, you know, go the other way either. So I'm sure there's a middle ground that's engaging, but not goofy, you know, I don't know.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, right. I mean, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, somebody wrote, Leslie, you wrote about being scientific, right? Being competent was one of your words, Brendan, right? I mean, all that like, yeah, I mean, yeah, great, cool. Bernie, haven't heard from you. If you don't have anything, that's fine. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but
No, I do have one question. I was on something the other night and there was a chats were coming through and I wasn't sure how those were controlled and where I should answer them. I only have a short presentation for PLM, but I don't know how to fit that into the whole conversation and when I'm supposed to respond to them.
Great. So that piece, which I think is a little different from connecting, which is what we've been talking about. Let's just get that answered because that's just a technical thing. So if my recorded piece is going out and I know I'm going to have Q&A later, is someone going to moderate that for me, Irina? Is someone, so in other words, somebody would say, hey, Bernie, there's a question in the chat about blah, 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 right? Is somebody going to do that? Or is Bernie responsible for reading the chat and knowing it all?
No, so we're going to let the full recording play, and then when the recording is over, then we're going to turn it over for live chat Q&A. We will ask each team, Bernie, to have a moderator, somebody who will read the questions and direct them either to you, Miran or Mark, to answer, so you don't have to worry about keeping up with what's being typed in the chat. You can focus on answering the questions. So somebody will facilitate reading and following up if there are any follow-up questions that are being typed in. Does that make sense, Bernie? Does it answer your question?
Yes, thank you. That's right. I was then thinking about when we're presenting, it's recorded, so no one's going to interrupt us. That's true.
Well, it's possible, and I've seen that before during recorded presentations, that chats are coming in during the recording. And I've seen people, so at village-wide meeting, I've seen leaders answer in the chat to the questions while their recording is playing. And personally, I don't think that's super effective because while everybody knows there's a recording, but it still creates this impression, wow, I'm watching you speak and you answering my questions at the same time. I just don't think that's super effective. My recommendation would be to wait until the formal Q&A. Leslie, I don't know if you have an observation there.
I'm with you on that, by the way, too. I just find it distracting for me as a listener. It's like suddenly I can only listen or read. I can't do both. So yeah, I would let it go. Leslie, did you have a thought about that?
No, I agree completely.
Great. So let me jump us back to connecting. So I really appreciate how you all are thinking about it. So I'm going to just give you some kind of tips and I hope they're helpful. So I'm going to say something that is going to echo what you've heard if you've seen the video, the kind of pre-video that I did. I've gotten a chance so far this morning, it's morning for me, well, no, it's not, it's afternoon for me, but I've gotten a chance to listen to all of you speak your ideas, talk out loud, and you all are fluent, conversational, natural speakers. You're all easy to listen to. One of the things that I said that I think is really critical is that you put a person in the lens and talk to that person. You're not trying to read your notes. You're not trying to teach. You're trying to actually talk to someone. You're trying to get ideas from your head to their head so that it's a sense of one-on-one and conversation. That's going to be helpful around connecting to people, as opposed to, like Leslie said, like reading a presentation. That's number one. Here's number two. One of the things that is incredibly compelling, and Marty, I just want to say you seem to do this pretty naturally. One of the things that is really compelling as we watch each other speak is the sense of you, when we see someone who appears to be glad to be there. And Marty, you have a very natural way of talking and smiling while you do it. You seem to be glad to being in your life and with us at this moment. And it's helpful. It makes us connect to you pretty easily. I want to be clear that you can talk about serious subjects and data and complex ideas and still appear to be glad for the opportunity to do it. To have that in your heart, to have that as you look at that person in the lens of like, I'm so glad I get to talk to you about this. This is important to me. I hope it's important to you too. And that has a kind of passion to it, a kind of real meaning to it, like you bring purpose to it, and that helps us stay connected. So that's another idea. And here's a third. This is a trick. Use it if it works for you. Especially when you have finished an idea, let's consider that it might be a paragraph or two, you've finished an idea, and you're about to start a new idea, it can be really helpful, and this is the trick, to imagine that that person in the lens asks you a question that triggers your next idea. Because look, you finished an idea, how do you get to the next idea? Did you memorize it? In which case, you risk, inducing a yawn on my part, right? But if somebody says to you, hey, but wait, what about this other thing? And for you to answer the question, it also can launch you in a way that's more conversational to say, there's something else I've been thinking about a lot, or there's another idea that I think is really important. And it allows you to start with a kind of conversational hook instead of just the next paragraph. So those are three ideas all about connecting. I'm going to add one more. I'm improvising, can you tell? I'm going to add one more. The thing that keeps us listening to each other as human beings is variety. And it might be variety, of pace, like I just took a pause, and that's one way that we keep our ears engaged. It might be any number of things, loud and soft, long and short sentences. It might be any number of things. But that sense, rhythm is kind of in some ways the easiest to do because it helps you stay conversational. That's another way of connecting with people, is making sure that you have variety, which, by the way, all of you do who've talked so far today. You all do it completely naturally. So it's another reason why I want to suggest that when you rehearse, you don't say the same thing every time, because that's when we tend to fall into a cadence. Hi, Michael. Welcome. Glad you're here. Hi.
Sorry to be late.
Hey, it's all good. We're recording and you're welcome. And if you've got something that's on your mind, just throw it in. It's all good. So we've been talking about connecting to people. I just gave a bunch of tips and ideas. How does this sound to you, or what questions do they prompt in you? What sounds easy? What sounds hard? I don't know. What's on your mind?
I think, I mean, for me, that it was very useful. I found that very helpful.
Okay, not too technical.
I think body language is, I guess, another area, you know, again, on a virtual camera that, you know, I mean, I talk a lot with my hands, but when you're recording virtually, you know, you're talking up here, you look, they have giant hands. I mean, that's, you know, there's kind of silly bits to this that happen, but I mean, you know, how you carry yourself in front of the camera seems a little more restrictive than the way you might do it on stage, for example, because PLM seems like a pretty high energy event from what I've seen before. So I don't think marching around inside your studio is the right process we want to shoot for, Irina, I'm guessing, but.
Marty, you looked like you were going to add something. Were you?
No, I was going to say that the concept of the person being in the lens is something that I'm not sure I totally had envisioned previously, but you saying that makes it more real as to how to do it. I mean, it's if you're talking to somebody right there. So that was super helpful to me, you know, as you described that, and I kept envisioning, wow, yeah, that does make sense. You know, there is a person there in the lens, you know, and it's similar to how people describe Bill Clinton when he would get in a room and he was talking to you, you would feel that you're the only person in the room that Bill Clinton is talking. And
I have heard that so many times about him. Yes.
Right. And so there's something about talking to that one individual, whoever it is out there, but it's that one individual. So yeah, that was super helpful. I like the way you articulated that.
Great. Listen, it's also, I think, helpful because talking into a lens is artificial on its nature.
Right.
But we all have to do it. And so the truth is, and again, I think all of us in our heads at different times and in different settings, we have conversations with the person we want to talk to. Like, oh my God, I have to, you know, say this thing to my kid. How am I going to say it? And so you practice it and it just kind of comes out while you're driving and you don't think anything of it. It doesn't feel like, you know, you need medication or right. You're not having a mental problem. You're actually just kind of prepping. And that's the game that you have to play when you're doing this. It's just that I'm having this conversation with this person that I'm imagining. And so it's just imagination.
Or you could do what I do is I put Harry Potter on the top of my camera. I talk to Harry Potter. I'm not kidding.
But really,
I'm not joking. When I went virtual at my last company, I bought a set of Harry Potter characters this size, and I gave one to each of my teammates to put on top of their camera just to remind them of where it is.
But
yeah,
I love that. And I just want to say, Jonathan, I mean, aside from the fact that we're all going to now out you and
that's fine. I mean, you know,
but to me, it's like whatever works,
yeah.
Whatever works. So I love the fact, and I love that you have that. That's fantastic.
Tom, I'm going to pretend I'm talking to you because as you're talking, you give everyone a positive feeling about everything. So I think that's a really good thing. So you're that person.
Well, I thank you for the feedback, and I'm welcome to be there. I mean, really, I'll be there for you, Bernie, I promise. So
see, that's
there you go.
There you go.
So, Brendan, you've mentioned a couple times gestures, and you also talked about watching yourself on video. So I want to address both those things. First off, I am going to assume on the day when you're really recording and there's a green screen behind you, I'm assuming that the green screen is good enough that if you gesture, it's not going to crackle. Do you know what I'm talking about? How sometimes if the green screen has me here, as soon as I gesture, like my fingers look like they're partly in another dimension, you know, I'm assuming that your green screen will actually manage it, and you don't have to worry about that. And the other thing is, I think as long as you're not gesturing towards the lens, as you observe, Brendan, that's really creepy and weird. But that if you're gesturing in this plane, the way we do when we talk, I want to suggest to you over the next couple weeks, watch people on video. Some people gesture, and some people don't, and it's fine. Do what works for you energetically. If it's going to help you stay connected to that imaginary person in the lens, to talk to them with your hands, talk to them with your hands. Because what we really get from you is whether you are connected or not, right? So for you to kind of like sit on your hands and never gesture, and if that's kind of going to create some sort of tension, then don't do it. Look, you're the star of the show here. Whatever, ever makes you work. Harry Potter on the lens, whatever it is, I mean, do it, because we're watching you and you're it, right? So I hope gesture wise that's okay. Let me
Yeah, no,
talk
that's perfect. I just think I wanted to hear that it was, in this nicer version of a studio versus this. I think that will be fine. I think in the camera, sometimes when we've been too close, that's one of the reasons some of these, a lot of the presentations we've seen, again, Bernie, Marty, Mike, you think we've seen, Michael, we've seen some of the physician presentations, the conferences leave you on your own to record them. And we've seen some kind of goofy, presentation show up there. And I'm like, gosh, I want to make sure we're not doing that, because I don't want to do 3 takes of any of these talks.
Well, one of the things is the cameras that we all have on our computers are, look, even they might be high def, but they're actually not meant to do all this, right? I mean, the fact that my camera is this wide and all that, but you're going to get in a studio with a lens that's actually going to be your friend, that's there to make you look good. So it's going to be fine. That part is going to be better, as opposed to recording this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. One other thing, I don't know whether you're going to see playback of yourself. Irina, is it likely that if I come into the studio to record and I do, let's say I've got 5 minutes to do, and I do my 5 minutes from heads to tail, am I then going to see it back and then have to record again?
I'm not sure, because we have a tight schedule. I don't know, Leslie, if you know based on prior recordings.
No, you don't know, or no, that won't happen? Sorry, you're muted.
I don't know, but I'm texting the guy who knows, so stay tuned.
Cool. So here's the deal about watching yourself on video. Who likes it? Nobody I know. So number one, just, okay, I'm sorry if you have to do that. But one of the ways that can be really helpful is to make it a third person, as opposed to me, like, oh my God, look what I'm doing. Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. Oh my God, is that my nose? Like all that stuff that we get into that is so uncomfortable. To just look at this as a third person and remove yourself as far as you can and go, oh, he looks really engaged. Oh, she's really connected in the lens. Oh, look, she's blinking a lot, or whatever. And then you don't get to judge it. You need to ask your director or someone in the studio and go, am I blinking a lot? Is that something I should manage? Am I gesturing too much? Don't you assume that you can actually do the assessment. You can't, because that's not your job. It's so hard to assess your own performance on video. And again, some of you may know, I made my living in front of the television camera for decades. I was never the person to look and go, yeah, that was a good take or that was not a good take. It was never, I couldn't decide ever. So it's not my job. So get help, just get help. There was a question about slides in virtual. And this feels to me like it's, Leslie's going to be able to be a big help for us here. So one of the things that I do not know is I don't know how the visual gets pushed to the audience, right? So I don't know if, for example, you get really small and your slide gets big, or if you're equal, or if sometimes the slide goes away. Like, Leslie, how does this actually get managed? Like, if I'm one of the viewers, what do I actually see when somebody puts up a slide?
So when the presenter and the slide are on screen at the same time, the presenter is going to be about a third of the screen and the slide will be about 2/3. And we have some screenshots of that from other meetings that we can share with you. The AV team, when they edit everything together, are going to decide, there's some places where they're going to make your slide go full screen and you'll fade away. And there'll be other places where they take your slide off altogether. Those places where the slide comes down completely, we'll pretty much know about, and we'll be able to annotate that in your notes, no slide here. If the slide needs to fill the whole screen, the AV team will make that decision in post-production.
Great, that's really helpful. So here's the deal. Really, truly, the slides are none of your concern. You need to talk to the slides. You need to know where you are in your own slides. But in terms of how it's going to look, you have no control over it. It's not yours to manage. So just stay with your person in the lens. That's your job, is to connect in the lens and let the slides take care of itself. Now, I just want to say, I would try and solve this problem. If I were one of you who was going to present, I would want to know what's going to be on my teleprompter. And am I going to see my slide, and is my slide going to help me, right? So I don't know that I can actually like have a slide, have a computer screen near the lens, near the teleprompter that would show me where I am. I don't know how the setup is. And again, we might be able to get some information about that. You might be able to talk about that in your rehearsal when you rehearse, if that's going to be important to you. But maybe you don't need it. Maybe all you need are your notes in the teleprompter. So here's a thought for you, building on what I talked about in that pre-work video, this idea of not memorizing, not reading an actual speech. I think it would be important for you and helpful for you between now and your rehearsal to figure out what you want on the teleprompter, because they will load your document in the teleprompter. And then for you to be scrolling it while you're rehearsing, right? Because for the rehearsal, you have to be your own teleprompter operator, but to figure it out, maybe you only need like 5 words, and that's a whole paragraph. In which case, that's great. The teleprompter operator will figure that out, and you can work it with your operator. By the way, again, Irina or Leslie, if I'm misspeaking, please correct me, but that's their job. That's what teleprompter operators do. And if you just say, look, that's this whole paragraph, they'll get it. So you need to start figuring out what's going to be helpful to you. And I want to suggest to you that you have that as well worked out for yourself before you go into your rehearsal on March 8th or 9th as possible. So this raises a whole set of questions. And again, Irina, Leslie, if there's ways that you can help coach, that's fine. But I'm also wondering what questions this is bringing up for you, because I can imagine you might be hearing this and going like, this sounds horrible. I don't know.
So I'll just jump in quickly. No teleprompter at rehearsal. Rehearsal is going to be a lot like this. You'll be just in front of your computer. So if you want to pretend like you have the teleprompter, I would probably advise just that you print out the content that you're going to use. Tom's going to stop. You've got something to say.
The way that I would do it is, I don't know if you've got 2 monitors or not, but the way I would do it is I would put up a great big Word document right below my lens and then scroll through it and pretend that, and so that I'm going to be looking a little below the lens and as if that's my teleprompter, as opposed to having to actually look at paper. So sorry, I interrupted you though. You looked like you looked at like you had one more idea and I interrupted. Sorry.
Yeah, what we haven't gone over yet with most of the teams is that what you can have on the teleprompter when you record is either bullets or a couple of sentences. You can have a complete script if that's what you want. And what we're going to be doing as we're working on your slides is we're going to annotate all capitals teleprompter in your notes, and then whatever comes after that word, that's what's going to be on your teleprompter. So we'll finalize that with you as we're finalizing your slides.
Great. So that won't be ready for March 8th or 9th. That's something that for example, I could work on it myself and then send you that, right? Great. Okay, terrific. I just want to say this sounds really well organized. It sounds really supportive. It sounds like you have a really big safety net under you. So that's great. I'm really glad.
Leslie, I've got a quick question, and or Irina, just kind of, it's a little bit technical, but with Francesca and I both presenting, if part of our discussion is to break it up with some Q&A, almost like a fireside chat with her playing the role of the physician, how is that going to work? Is it, or do we have two cameras, one camera? How do we arrange those things? Is that anticipated?
So definitely we have a couple of dual presentations. So Marty and Miran will be on stage together. You and Francesca, we have a few more in different breakouts. I don't know how many cameras they're going to use, but they will make sure that where you need to interact and both of you need to be on the screen, that both of you appear on the screen. So I trust that our AV team will handle the technical logistics behind it.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure, like, we weren't the only ones, and next thing you know, we're showing up and you, right. Okay, great. Thank you.
One of the things, having worked with DaVita now several times in prep for people going to shoot, I have found that it's pretty well thought out, and that the video studio is really well managed. That's what I've been hearing. So, and I also always want to say this, which is, you're the presenter. It's your ass in front of the camera. You don't hesitate to ask questions.
Yeah.
Be stupid that day. Where do you want me to look? And how will I know when my camera's on and all that stuff? Yeah, because it would be like if I came into your workplace, I would have a lot of questions, right? So, yeah.
Right, thank you.
No, thank you. Those are the kinds of questions like I would never have thought of. So that's fantastic. There's one more item on the list from the first questions of the morning, and which was around, I can't remember the word you used, Brittany, it was great. Jitters, butterflies, nervousness. I don't know what you called it, but you called it something. I don't know what you all are going to experience. One of the things that in my life as a performer, I experienced being on stage very differently than being in front of the camera. Being on stage had a kind of energy to it that was exhilarating. Being in front of a camera, for me, never did. It just because you can always do a second take. You could stop the camera and just start over. Like, there was nothing at stake in some ways, right? Unless there was going to be an explosion or something. And I got to do some of those, or an animal or whatever, like where it's like, we better get this in one take, guys. Then it was kind of exciting. But the truth of the matter is, I understand you have a hard schedule. I understand that there's going to be a lot of pressure that day. And there's always a way to fix it in editing. There's always a way. It's just video. So I don't know if this is helpful or not, but here's what I want to say to you. I understand that you are not necessarily a trained performer, and suddenly you're being asked to perform. You're being asked to pretend. You're being asked to look in the lens, manage a teleprompter, all that stuff that if you've never done it, it's weird. It's disorienting. I understand how you might experience some nervousness. Here's the game around nervousness. Most people experience nervousness somewhere in their body, shortness of breath, a kind of fluttering of their heart, feeling like they're going to throw up. I mean, whatever it is, everybody's got their own thing. It's like somebody else's car alarm going off in your neighborhood. It is nothing you need to attend to. It is an indicator with no meaning. It is not, you're not in trouble. So what's important for you at that point is to remember your job and coexist with that feeling. If your feeling is, I feel like I'm short of breath, I feel like I need to pee, that's a really common one. I feel like I'm going to throw up, I hear that all the time, right? That's okay. Who's in the lens? What ideas are you trying to do? Get back to your job and really allow that to coexist with you. I do this because it's like there's a little voice talking in your ear. You suck. Like, oh my God, are you gesturing like that? You're not really going to say that, are you? Oh, you are so freaking boring, right? I mean, it's just this chatter that goes on in your head. That's the car alarm, and it's not your car. You do not need to attend to it, and I beg you, do not get into dialogue with it. You're really going to gesture like that? Like, yeah, that's how I practice it. Like, now you're doing you're not in the lens anymore, right? You're not connecting to your person. So I want to suggest to you that nervousness is something that is fine. It is no indication of whether your performance is going to be good or not. Nervousness is just whatever. It's like being hungry in a meeting. You can still do your job in the meeting, right? I don't know if that's helpful. That was a big blast that I just gave you around all that.
That's extremely helpful.
Oh, good.
I
Okay.
actually had jitters just listening to you, and then I started not. I did, and I started not focusing, not listening to it, and I could feel it go away a little bit. So yeah, it was very helpful.
Great, great, good. The more that you can create a reality for yourself that you can find again, that will be important. Listen, I think we all know that we all have sense memory, smells that trigger feelings, food that gives us comfort. Your work into the lens, your work with these ideas, your work with these slides, you're actually trying to create those neural pathways that are going to let you settle in and go, I know how to do this. Yeah, I've done this before. That's what you're looking for. And that's why rehearsal is so important. Not that you say the same thing every time. That's not what I'm saying, but that you engage with the ideas every time, right? Like, oh, I love explaining this. Oh, I'm so glad to talk to you about this. So, great. We've got a few minutes left. What other questions do you have? What other worries do you have? What else would be helpful?
I'll just ask, and I don't know if this is something that you can weigh in on with Irina and Leslie. You know, some of the sessions, I guess, you know, we're giving concepts and high level things, and I think we can speak to as long as we know where we are in our presentation. But there are breakout sessions, which I think, you know, mechanically run a little bit different. You know, we're running through case, we're referencing graphs and those kind of things. And so, you know, Irene and Leslie, you know, I think about what I'm working through, which are some case examples, we'll show some visual aids and those kind of things. I think that may be a little bit trickier to do. So and the tone on those sessions is, you know, one's a little more, you know, hopefully a little inspirational, a little educational, and these are maybe a little more, I don't want to say workman-like, but, you know, but we'll walk through some, you know, population health cases, a couple of those in my session. And I'm not sure how I will tackle those in kind of a studio audience setting. And I don't know if that's really a great Tom question. Maybe that's more of an Irene and a Leslie question, as we're looking at, you know, graphs and diagrams where we would reference and say, hey, this is where your issue is, and those kind of things. And the setup seems a little problematic for that kind of work.
So I've got a bunch of ideas, but Irina and Leslie, if
Go for it.
so, my experience of breakout rooms is the gift of a breakout room is that people get to get engaged with their own thinking, so that they can take your ideas and find out how they think about them. What you want to give people in a breakout room is an experience of engaging with your ideas. And so there's two things that are really, really important. Clear instructions, like really clear instructions. What do you want them to do? And permission that they don't have to be smart. It's a learning facility. It's a learning room. And we learn through making mistakes. We learn through discovery. We learn by trial and error. So a breakout room, when you think about it, you do not need to be the expert anymore, except giving really clear instructions. And then step back and let them do the work. And you might be able to help them think about some ideas, but let them learn. It's a learning laboratory. I believe that's why you're going to have a breakout room. Now, by the way, I might have totally misunderstood.
No, it's okay. So we'll have a little bit of a hybrid. So I think we've got about kind of 30 minutes of presenting some examples of some cases, and then we'll kind of move towards engaging the group and those kind of things. So I think the second half of that's, exactly what we're thinking about. But it's just the kind of mechanistics of walking through, a case example in the kind of studio setup is a little bit different. Yeah, you're right. So, without being too concrete, it'll be a little trickier.
And what I would ask is, why are you sharing this case with them? What question do you want them to be asking? How do you want them to be listening, right? That goes to my piece of good instructions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Set it up. Like, I'm going to tell you this thing, and here's why I'm going to tell you this thing. Here's the question I want you to be listening for, or something. So I don't know that you and I don't think we're saying different things. I think we're saying the same thing. I don't know.
Yeah, no, true. I think it's just, again, the technical setup of the studio, doesn't necessarily lend itself. So for our rehearsal, let's say, I'm driving the slides on here, for example, and you can say, hey, you can see on this, we've got a 4-phase project down here, and you can see here in phase 2 that X, Y, or Z is going on, whatever the case is. This is how you identified the choke point in your supply chain, whatever the problem is that you're trying to illustrate down there. As opposed to the shorter sessions, which are kind of conceptual, we're talking to it, we're telling a story with these ones too as well. But these require a little bit more of a crutch because we're showing them some tools, for example, and we want to display to them how they're going to use and implement those tools, and then set them free, hopefully, to use those tools on their own during kind of the latter half of the breakout session. So in a virtual session, if we're doing it in a studio, that gets a little bit tricky. I need a little bit of the weatherman, like there's a front in California over here. That's going to get.
So here's what my experience, Brendan, is that this video group, the studio, is really good at that kind of problem solving. And somebody has thought about it. And if they haven't, you need to ask that question. But in other words, Irina and Leslie have now heard it. They've heard this issue. And if it hasn't been raised yet, they can raise it so that somebody can say to you, here's how it's going to work. Because somebody's going to solve this problem for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brendan, I have a similar challenge, as part of being also a breakout group. And my assumption, Irina, Leslie, based on the fact that this is recorded, is that something that would be solved in editing. Is that accurate or inaccurate?
Yeah, I think you're right. And this is when the edited team can zoom in on the tools, zoom in on specific slides you want to show, zoom out and show you when you want them to focus on you. And I really like Tom's suggestion to tee up and set up your case study by why you're showing it, what's the question they need to be thinking about before you present the case study, so you hook them into your case study and really pay attention, because I think a lot of it is editing, but a lot of it them following what you have to say. So if you set it up correctly, hopefully they're going to follow, pay attention.
Yeah, no, true. I agree. I think from a planning, just a mechanics, planning perspective, I think what I'm going to have to do for that, teleprompter script is remind myself where I am, because typically I could look at that piece on the slide when I was going, right? That breakdown diagram of, whatever, widget making, whatever it is, these are the 8 steps of widget making, and 7's where I'm going to have to probably have that written out for myself in terms of planning as I walk through the case. And then they can show that highlighted however they want to in post-production. So, okay, well, that's good I think that's a fine piece that we can implement.
By the way, there's also the possibility this may or may not work. It's possible that you might be able to ask, when you're on the floor of the studio shooting, to ask somebody like Leslie, are you guys going to be on me at this point or on the slide? Because if they're going to be on the slide, then you could read it because you won't be on camera. Right? So now they may not have made that decision yet. They may need to say, we need to look at it. We don't know yet. But you might be able to ask that question, and they might know ahead of time, go, yo, yeah, we're not even going to show you at that point. We're just going to have the slide up with the 7 points.
Okay.
In which case you get to cheat. It's great. Yeah.
So, I like that.
I do too. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Cheat whenever you can. So listen, I want to keep us on time and on track here. First off, by the way, thank you for the spirit you came with today around just to come as learners and interesting and curious. So thank you for that. But also, I want to be sure that you all know that Arena has arranged that there are up to 8 hours of my time to work with you individually. So however that happens, just reach out to me and then we'll make it happen. I'm sure that we all have complicated calendars, so the sooner the better, right? Either maybe before your rehearsal or after your rehearsal, after you've gotten feedback from your 6 different directors, whatever it is. So just know that it's there for you as a resource, and it's up to you to take it, right? In other words, I don't think we're going to manage that for you. So if you want it, that would be great. And then after the rehearsal, we're going to have one more group session just like this, where we're going to come together and just go like, you know, how big a train wreck was that, and how do we make it better? So
thank you. I just want to thank you and Arena and Leslie. I mean, this is like, I'll tell you, I've been at my last role, I was shoved in front of 5,000 bankers with like 0 support, right? and in my other roles, I have not. This is the most incredible amount of support that I've ever had for a virtual event. Any event, let alone the fact that it's virtual. I've been like, here, ballroom of 5,000, thousands of bankers, have at it, like enjoy. So I just really hats off and appreciate the support and thoughtfulness of the approach. It's amazing.
Jonathan, I just want to echo it that, you know, I do this for a living for all kinds of different companies, but DaVita has been consistently so generous with their support. And they just really clearly believe in it. So I agree. What a lovely culture to come into. Yeah.
This is amazing.
Great.
Thank you all for your time, and thank you, Tom.
All right,
for your
thanks,
time.
Tom.
Really-
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much.
All
I'll
right,
see you again
bye-bye,
soon.
gang.
Bye.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.